And now it's time for Church Chat.
Greetings, friends. Welcome to another edition of Church Chat. I'm joined today by Laurie Robertson, and we have a couple of things that we'd like to discuss with each other and with you. As many of you know, we returned to in-person worship for the very first time last Sunday. It's a bit surreal. It's a thing that comes with mixed emotions, I think. First of all, Laurie, I think I would say with great joy.
Yes, absolutely.
And I hope you felt some of that last Sunday as you were there in the pew. But there are some other things, and of course, I'm seeing everything from my perspective, behind a mask and glasses and a face shield, even at communion time. That was advice I got from a doctor friend of mine. She said she thought that the face shield was the most important part of PPE when she was in close quarters with somebody. But I'm interested to hear, Laurie, what your perspective is from being in the pew, being on the other side, as it were.
Well, I came early because I knew that I had seen the little 2-minute video about church reopening from Jerry Chapman on YouTube. And I knew that they were going to seat people at the front first. And I wanted to be at the front. Oh, terrible thing. I've always been the teacher's pet. So I came early and I sat at the front. So I got to see people coming in, but everybody had a mask. So that was very odd because some people I couldn't remember. They looked sort of vaguely familiar, but who was that person in that? Who was that masked man?
Right. Yeah.
So that, and then the not sitting too close to other people and the not being able to really hang around. Now the rain at the end was helpful because people didn't want to hang around outdoors. So that did help us to disperse and not feel too bad. But the service was different too, and I really enjoyed the service. There were some changes because we are mixing the sung service with the said service and doing things just a little bit differently. And I really enjoyed some of the new words, new to me. I've only been an Anglican for a decade, so probably you guys all know this stuff. But anyway, it was a lovely service. And even though we can only communicate in one kind, we received the bread and not the wine, still to break my Eucharistic fast was an incredibly intense and important moment. And to just have that one added thing to what we've been doing all these months, to have that back again. So impressions very favorable, Jesse. Great job.
Well, good. Thank you. Yeah, we had a special entrance rite this last Sunday that was just thanking God that we could be gathered together again, thanking God for God's faithfulness during this time when we've been worshiping together but apart, and praying for God's mercy and God's grace to be with all of those who are grievously affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, for those who have died, for those who are ill, and in thanksgiving, naming very specifically those people in our society who have kept things going, and who really have been indispensable. Leanne and I were just talking this morning about this, and we have several times during the pandemic about our gratitude for the kindness and the forbearance and the perseverance of those people who, quite frankly, I'll admit this, it's a sin, but I'll admit it, people that I took for granted. I like to think that I hold everybody to be of inestimable value in a Christian sense as precious beloved children of God. But I too have been guilty of taking people for granted. So that litany that we had, that entrance rite last week, was really meant to just mark our gratitude for God's good creation, God's presence, God's faithfulness, and how we see that displayed in others. And yes, receiving communion in one kind, it's strange for Anglicans. It wouldn't be for our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters, but it is strange for Anglicans to not receive the common cup. Like the Catholic Church, Anglicans hold to a doctrine called concomitance. And here's where everybody is turning off the YouTube stream. So I won't talk about it very long. But concomitance means that whether we receive bread alone or wine alone, we have still made a full communion. This is not half best. You can, well, there's an analogy, but I think it'll probably be heresy, so I'll resist saying it on a public format. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing. I should say we are operating with these guidelines in place to make sure that everybody is kept safe. We are operating in such a way that the goal is that, God forbid, and heaven forfend, but God forbid that there should be a positive case of COVID-19 in one of the faithful, or frankly, in one of the people leading the service, in the priest who's celebrating communion, that our guidelines are stringent enough that even in that scenario, we would still be able to prevent any kind of exposure, any kind of spread of COVID-19. And we've seen some evidence of, particularly in Catholic masses, as you may know, Catholic dioceses and archdioceses around the country and in the United States have been back at it for some months now. We have had a number of instances that have been reported where there were positive cases reported among the faithful who attended Catholic masses, but because of the stringent protocols, they did not spread to anybody else. So those are very good news stories.
Very good news.
Yeah, and we're going to continue with these guidelines for as long as we need to. Now, the other question that a number of people have, I know, is that we're seeing the case count go up in Ontario. In fact, just yesterday, as we filmed this, I saw that the case count was over 400, which is the highest numbers that we've had since, I think, early June. Mm-hmm. That's concerning. Bishop Asbel, our diocesan bishop, has communicated twice now in his weekly email that there is sort of a provisional basis on which we are operating under these guidelines. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that there will be another lockdown, that there will be another closure of our church doors to in-person gathered worship. That is a possibility. But for now, again, we are operating with these guidelines in place such that if there were a positive case, even if there were a positive case among faithful or clergy or other leaders of worship, that we would be operating in such a safe way as to ensure that there would not be transmission. Another thing to repeat, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again, please know that we take your safety absolutely seriously, and that extends to a deep respect for those who choose not to attend in-person worship. No person is required to attend in-person worship. Nobody's soul is in jeopardy because they haven't attended in-person worship. If you do not feel safe doing so, you are not required to do so. And that is not second best. That is not a decision that anybody is going to turn their nose up at or scorn or mock. You are absolutely free to attend in-person worship or not as you feel safe and able to do so. So please do know that. Now, we have, I think, a really terrific, short, but really terrific Christian education opportunity coming up, Laurie. We are going to be delving into a small book that was published, a small yet great book that was published by Bishop N.T. Wright, Tom Wright. And I was delighted, actually, as I was reading the book, to hear a couple of theologians in our own Diocese of Toronto, Sylvia Keesmaat and Brian Walsh, who are husband and wife, both theologians, who got a little shout out from Bishop Wright in that book. He cites them as both as sources, particularly their work on the Pauline epistles. I don't know Sylvia and Brian terribly well, though I've met them and I've certainly heard them speak. And I thought that was terrific. And I was reminded actually that Bishop Wright was at the diocesan college in the Diocese of Montreal for a number of years. As one of my colleagues said, when Bishop N.T. Wright was just Tom, was when he was there. So he does have a Canadian connection. Anyway, the book is God and the Pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful read, Laurie, I found.
Oh, yeah.
I know you did too. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about it?
Well, actually, I'm only halfway through.
Oh, well.
because I've been doing some other study that had a closer deadline. But so Tom Wright is still Tom Wright, and some of his most recent publications just say Tom Wright. So don't mistake him for not being the same guy. And Dr. Sylvia Kiesmat is one of my heroes of the faith. Her mission in life is to reclaim Paul. There's another word she uses, I can't remember, but anyway, so good to know. But God in the pandemic, a lot of people have been concerned about, is the pandemic from God? Does it mean something in our spiritual life? Did God send this as a punishment on the world? What can we do about it, and so forth? And there are a lot of positions on that spectrum. N.T. Wright takes us, Tom, takes us with his thinking through a properly scriptural response to the pandemic and what we can do about it. And we're just going to have a good conversation. So 2 Wednesdays, this coming Wednesday, the 23rd, at 11 a.m. on Zoom, and the following Wednesday, the 30th, 2 sessions. Father Jesse and I will lead those. An email will be going out today, with the Zoom link to all those who have requested it, who have registered with me. So please do get in touch if you want to receive that Zoom link. And this goes out to our whole church distribution list as well. I'll be sending something to everyone to remind you that it's not too late to register. And for those who are interested in such a book study but have less time, or perhaps they're not available during the end of the day, I've just found out that Bishop Jenny Anderson is offering a 1 evening session. That's Tuesday the 22nd at 7:30 p.m. And again, if you want to get in touch with me, or you can get in touch with Bishop Anderson's office or the diocese, they all know about it and so forth. So there's ways of getting involved in that. And it's just a 1 evening book study with some people in Bishop Anderson's area. So that's God in the pandemic. Let's have fun together and socialize, and also learn something of interest to one another. And just want to touch on what happens next after that. So Father Jesse and I are pulling together a new Bible study, a little bit more in depth than our last one, and it will continue on starting in mid-October. So there will be an email going out about that in the near future, and that will continue our Wednesdays at 11. So hoping to see you all there.
And I should say, if you haven't got the book, if you haven't ordered the book yet, Amazon has copies of it that they will deliver. I looked and saw that if I ordered it today, it would be delivered on Monday. The book is quite short. It's also available on Audible and other audiobook platforms. And I just looked at my Audible, because I got the Audible copy of it as well, and it was 2 hours and 36 minutes. So this being Saturday or perhaps Sunday when you watch this, there's still time to join in. And even if you haven't got the book just yet, the first week, do join the conversation, and you'll be able to hear some snippets of it and to get a general sense of the conversation. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I think that's all.
I think so all, yeah.
Okay, well, God bless you all, and thank you very, very much for joining in for this edition of Church Chat, and we'll see you again in this space before long.
It was good to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.